Hello and welcome to The Faithful Stamper. I am Jennifer Helm, independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up! And this is my Mystery Monday card for Monday, December the 14th, 2020. This is a simple fun fold card. Nothing too fancy or ornate about it, yet it's a very beautiful card, perfect for any occasion. You can make this card without a lot of supplies and without a lot of fuss. So let's go ahead and get started. You will need 2 pieces of cardstock in one color, a piece of cardstock that is 5.5 inches tall by 6.5 inches wide, and on the 6.5 inches wide side you're going to want to score it at 2.25 inches. And then in the same color you're going to need a piece that is 4 by 5, and with the 5-inch side at the top, you want to score it right down the center at 2.5. You will also need a piece of cardstock in a secondary color. This is 4 by 5.25, what I consider your standard insert for a regular size card. And then you will need 2 pieces of Whisper White. You need a rectangle that is 3.5 inches tall by 4 inches wide. And then a rectangle, either the stitched rectangle from the die set if you have it, and this is approximately 2.25 inches by 3.5. So if you don't have this particular die set, just a plain piece of Whisper White cut to 2.25 by 3.5 will do just fine. I'm going to start with these pieces and get my stamping out of the way. So for the inside of my card, I am going to use the Flourish from the Ornate Style Set. Let me bring those over real quick. This is the Ornate Style Set, so I'm going to use the daisy on the front and this little corner flourish on the inside. My sentiment on the front is from Here's a Card. This is a great set that has lots of sentiments for all occasions, and I'm going to use the Happy Birthday. And then on the inside, I'm pairing that with Best Year, which has sentiments that are great for all year long. It has a couple of masculine sentiments great for Father's Day and birthdays. Even has a Christmas wish thrown in there. But I'm going to use the Wishing You Your Best Year Yet on the inside. So to get started with the stamping, I'm going to take some Bumblebee ink. I am pulling out the colors from my Designer Series paper. This is from the Ornate Garden Suite that we have in our catalog. If you would like to see the products that we have, you can visit thefaithfulstamper.stampinup.net and check them all out. But I use this stamp for the corner flourishes. It's one of my favorites. Just makes such a pretty frame. Then I'm going to stamp my inside sentiment with Coastal Cabana. These are all red rubber or cling stamps. Obviously the stamp is made out of red rubber, as you can see here, but it has a layer of foam underneath, so I don't have to worry about putting anything underneath my cardstock to get a good impression. The stamp has that foam built right in, so it'll do it for me. So I just tap lightly on my ink pad. You don't want to be too heavy-handed or you'll have ink in places you don't want to have ink, namely all over your cardstock. So there's that centered on the front of the inside of the card. Going to set that aside for a moment. The great thing about that ink is that it dries very quickly. Now for this piece, which is going to go on the front of my card, the daisy stamp that we have is actually a little longer than I would like. I didn't want the stem to be too far down because I wanted to have my Happy Birthday sentiment on the panel as well. So what I'm going to do is take a Post-it note. If you have masking tape built for crafting, not actual masking tape, but masking paper that some companies make, you can use that. But I take a Post-it note and I'm just going to put it across the bottom of my card, leaving enough room for my sentiment at the bottom. And then when I stamp the daisy, the bottom of that stamp, which I fear might be too long, will be on the Post-it note. Ooh. Did not get a good impression, so I'm going to flip that over and try again. It's the great thing about Whisper White cardstock. There's 2 sides to every piece. Try that again. There we go, much better. And when I peel that Post-it note away, I've cut off the bottom of that stem. It's on the Post-it. So now I know I have just the amount of space that I want. Pull over my last color, my Bermuda Bay, and now I can put that happy birthday sentiment at the bottom and still have room for the ribbon I want to put on the card. We'll get to that in a little bit. So now you'll need your piece of cardstock that is the 5.5 by 6.5 and scored at the 2 1/4. I like to fold it, and I'm going to crease it a little with my bone folder just to get a nice good crease. I'm going to go ahead and fold my other piece, which is the 4 by 5, scored at 2 1/2, and just fold that while I have my bone folder handy. I've got my strip of Designer Series paper, which is 2 by 5 1/4. I'm going to use my Stampin' Seal adhesive, which is great for card making, and attach this to the front of the card. This piece of paper I don't believe has any orientation, but I like it better this way. So check your orientation before you glue your Designer Series paper down. Make sure the pattern's running the right way, particularly if you've got animals or people. You don't want them hanging upside down on your card. But with flowers, not so much of a deal, at least not on this paper. Now, I'm going to take my insert, this is Bumblebee, and I want to attach my mini card, as I'm going to call it. So to do this, I'm actually going to put adhesive on the inside left. So you're holding the card backwards from the way a typical card would open. So your crease is going to be on your right-hand side. So I'm going to put a little adhesive here. And I want to make sure this doesn't go anywhere, so I'm using a little more than usual. And I put the piece that doesn't have any adhesive on it, lay it on the top. Make sure my card is centered, and then I'm just going to fold that flap right back. And that way, the card is exactly where I want it to be. Now I'm going to flip the whole thing over and put some adhesive on this before I glue it on the inside of the card. And what I tend to do, because even though it's just one layer of thickness here with the cardstock, I put a little extra adhesive on the back, just to make sure that extra layer isn't going to cause it to pull away from the card. I definitely don't want my cards falling apart. So this gets pressed down into place. I'm going to pull over that stamped insert. And I can't remember if I mentioned it, but make sure your 4-inch side goes at the top. That way it'll be perfectly lined up for the center of your card. So a little adhesive here. And you could always experiment with your interior piece. If you wanted a little wider, you have a little bit of room. I like to make sure it's hidden behind the flap when I close it. But you could make it a little wider if you wanted, or you could even cut a quarter inch off the width and make it so there's a frame around the whole thing. It's totally up to you. So now we're almost finished. I'm going to pull over this stamped piece and find my ribbon, which has walked away. I am going to use some of the Bumblebee gingham ribbon that we have. First off, I'm going to trim a piece that's about 3 1/4 to 3.5 inches long, just a little bit wider than the width of my rectangle. I could tie the whole ribbon around and tie a bow that way, but I'm not the most skilled at that, so I like to kind of fake it a little bit. So since this is a narrow ribbon, I'm going to take a glue dot, put a glue dot right in the middle, just to help anchor the ribbon and keep it in place as I'm assembling the card. And I'm going to put that between my design and my sentiment. If I was using a wider ribbon, I would put a little bit of the adhesive on the back of the ribbon itself before I glued it down. So now I ran a little bit of adhesive on each side, and with that glue dot anchoring my ribbon in place, I can just tuck the ends behind. I can tell that my ribbon is straight and it's secure on the back of the card. And nobody's going to know but me that I have that image that I goofed up on the back. Now you can glue this flat on the card, or you can use dimensionals. I am going to use some of our smaller dimensionals. That's what I have handy. These are our mini dimensionals. And so since I'm using the small ones, I want to definitely make sure I have enough coverage so that this does not sag in the middle. And I don't like to waste any of my crafting supplies, so I actually can take scissors and cut apart the edges around the outer edges of my dimensional sheet, and I'm not wasting 1 ounce of this little foam. And that is definitely, I don't like to waste craft supplies. So now all I need to do is peel off the backing for my dimensionals. And adhere this to the front of the card, and then I'm nearly finished. Just one more step. So there we go. That's centered on the card, but it's pretty like this, but I want to add just a little bit of a bow. So I'm going to take my ribbon. It's still attached to the spool. I tend to be a little handier making bows this way than with a loose piece of ribbon. 2 loops tied together. If I don't get it right the first time, I just start over. Let's see. Sometimes I have to play and adjust the loops. I think that's good. Take my scissors and angle the edge there on the one side. Gonna go back to my glue dots. Put a glue dot right in the center of the bow in the back. And then attach the bow. You can put the bow whichever side you like. Put it dead center, to the right, to the left. I like mine a little more to the right. And then I have my sweet and simple birthday card ready to go. So obviously this is a great card for using scraps of Designer Series paper. It doesn't involve a lot of supplies. I made the same style card using a different sheet of the Designer Series paper from the same suite. I'm a big fan of these florals. So you can see very, very pretty but very different looking just with the color changes. And then I quickly threw together a couple of Christmas cards just to show you that you can use these for any occasion. So a sweet Merry Christmas card. And then this was a favorite Christmas card that I made. This features our Dove of Hope set. And I just pulled in the colors from the Designer Series paper, have a little bling to my ribbon there, and have my Christmas sentiment on the inside. So a very simple card which can be used for any gift-giving occasion. So I hope you enjoyed my Mystery Monday Fun Fold. Thank you so much for visiting Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm, my YouTube channel. I would love it if you would subscribe and please share with your friends. Come check me out on Facebook at The Faithful Stamper. I'd love to see some of your creations. Thanks so much for tuning in. Happy crafting.